Hello, today is jelly making day, or jam, I guess. So here's the setup. I've made videos with just the process before, but this is the first time I've done it with explanation. So here we go. I have a bag of fresh berries that I threw in the freezer. You only got about a day or two to get them made into your jelly or jam, so I froze them because I didn't have time to do it immediately. So bought those fresh berries from the local farmer's market. This contraption is called a ricer, is what my grandma called it. It was hers, so I stick with that name since that's where I got it. You dump your berries in here and you use this wooden pestle thing to smash them through. You can kind of see the juice comes through the holes. Today I'm making blueberries, so it's not as important, but when I make blackberry jelly, you don't want all the seeds in there. It's okay if a few escape, but you don't want all of them. So this is real important to keep the seeds. Anyway, so I used good old Sure Gel, and you can buy organic pectin and all kinds of other products. The principle is the same. You want to use the exact proportions for the exact amount of pectin, or your jam won't set up. So this is my big measuring cup. The recipe said 3.5 cups of juice, so I'm right there. Got my big pot, and I have somewhere pre-measured my sugar. Oh, I carried it across the room. All right, so I have the exact amount of sugar, and you want to do this before you get started, because once you start cooking it, it boils fast, and I'll take some videos of that. I have washed the lids in soapy water. This is not hot yet. These are the lids, and this is what actually seals. This is the rubber here, and when you do the heat processing, that will be what creates the vacuum seal to preserve the jam. So I do have a canner, which I am not going to use today because it takes a huge amount of water. It's massive, and the small half-pint jars that I'm using don't need it. But this is, when you use pint jars or quart jars, you need to use something like this. You don't want to set glass directly on the burner, on the heat source, so that's what this rack is for, is to keep it just a little bit off. I have discovered that, and these lids I'm boiling for 8 minutes to sterilize them. So once it reaches boiling, then I'll just keep them hot until I'm got the jelly in the jars and ready to go. Always sterilize more lids than you think you're going to need, because I always drop at least one and then it won't be sterile and you can't use it. So I have found that this Dutch oven's cast iron pot will process the jars. The pint jars will fit down in there, and the water will be full once I put the jars in. And I use these silicone mats to keep them off the bottom so they don't break with the heat. So I'm going to heat that up as well while I'm heating this and cooking the jam. All right, so I've got my 3.5 cups of juice, and each type of fruit is a little different in the requirements of how much sugar and how much juice. So always look up the recipe and use exactly what it says, because the ratio of pectin to fruit must be correct or it won't set. So first thing you do is put the fruit juice in the pot, and then I'm adding the pectin and stir that up. Make sure I get it all in there. And then I'm going to start heating it, and I'm going to bring it to a rolling boil. And when it's at, you pretty much have to stir it almost constantly, which is the painful part about making jam and jelly, except for all the boiling water you have to deal with. And you can see the lids are boiling really nicely, so I've got a timer going on that. And when this gets to the rolling boil is when I'll add my sugar. All right, this is my juice with the pectin in it, and you can see it's boiling a little bit, but when I stir, the boiling bubbles go away. It's not at a full rolling boil yet. So it won't be long. Okay, we have bubbles that aren't going away when I stir. So I'm going to dump this sugar in. That will of course cool it off. And I'm going to stir it again until it gets back to boiling. And at this point you cannot skip a second of stirring. Sugar burns very easily and very quickly. So you must stir continually at this point. Okay, it's boiling, and now I'm going to time a minute with the second hand on my watch, and I'm going to cook and stir for that 60 seconds. Once the 60 seconds is up, the jelly is done, and I'll pull it off the heat. All right, I have my jars, which I sterilized in the dishwasher. I picked them up by only touching the outsides. Make sure not to touch the inside. And the jelly is here. This is my grandmother's antique jar filler funnel. I should probably get another one. It's so beat up, but I do love it. And you know, days like this, I miss my grandmother's. And you just carefully fill each jar. You want to leave a little room at the top because you are going to boil these, and they will to further sterilize them, and they will expand a little bit. I'm going to leave a little bit of an air pocket. See if you can see how far I'm filling that up. Move these little ones out of the way. My jam is sterile because it boiled, and my jars were sterilized in the dishwasher. The dishwasher is adequate for that. You can see there is a little. Now I'll have to wipe the top, but we're going to process them for in the boiling hot water bath, so that will sterilize anything that gets in there during this process. And the jars will, the jelly will be good for 2, sometimes 3 years. You can see that's about how far I fill them up. Alright, so I have a couple little spots on the tops, and I've just got a clean, damp paper towel. I'm going to wipe those off, trying not to touch the inside, because the inside is what matters. And over here, these jars are really hot, so I'm trying to not burn myself, but get them to where they will seal, because the jars will not seal if they're not completely clean. Alright, so now I have to try to lift these lids out of the water without dropping them. I boiled them for 8 minutes or 10 minutes, I think it was, and then I've been just keeping them warm over there. I pick them up with tongs. I should probably move the camera. I'm not touching the underside of that boiled lid, or some people call these seals, because the rubber is what's going to seal. Just plop it down on there, and then I'm going to take one of my just soapy water washed rings and screw it on there, and that will hold the seal down while it sterilizes. So I pick them up very carefully, trying not to let the underside touch my tongs, because the tongs are clean, but they are not sterile. Alright, this is what I'm going to use to process the jars. and you can see the water is boiling nicely. The silicone pads are what's going to keep the jars off the bottom of the pot so they don't break. And this is a handy dandy tool. There's two specialized tools that I use to can things or make jelly, or I guess the ricer is another one. But anyway, this is a jar lifter. You want to be able to lift the jars out of the boiling water without burning yourself. So I'm going to put these in here on the mat, making sure that they are the lids are covered with boiling water. I've screwed these down tight so they won't get water inside. And then they're going to boil. I'm going to boil them for 5 minutes, which is called processing. See, they're starting, the water level's coming up, so they're starting to cover the jars all the way. If I'm lucky, they will all fit. And one tiny one left. All right, now it's time to put the lid on and start the timer. All right, 5 minutes are up. Pull them out. Now I use an old bath towel for this. My counters are granite, so they'll probably be all right. I just don't want anything to break. I don't want them to cool down too fast. And the only reason I'm tipping them is that they got water caught on top. Not that it'll hurt anything, it just bothers me. So I'm going to set these here and let them cool down. As they cool down, these lids, I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of a bubble on there. As they cool down, that will suck in, will create a vacuum, and that'll suck in, and they will make a pop. And when they pop, then I'll know that they're sealed, and they'll be good for 2 to 3 years, depending on the batch. I've had them last as long as 4. I've had a few batches that weren't happy after the 2nd year. So anyway, that's how you make jelly and can it.